Now I'm using this soft bristle broom to get into the bolt wells and just knock out that sand that's sitting in there, because I don't want to bolt down onto that sand. All right, nice and clean. Now the reason I'm not spraying the brake clean into these bearings or right on top of them is I don't want to loosen up the grease on the bearings. That bearing's good. That bearing's a little choppy. That bearing's smooth as silk. All right, there's a particular place here where it's a little sticky. That's probably where this bearing's been riding. So I'm going to turn this off that sticky point about a half a turn so it no longer rides there. That's smoother. That's smooth. That's smooth. I'm liking that. Okay, let's clean these bearing seals. Now it's good to clean the inside of these too, because I noticed when I was done cleaning the outside there were grains of sand clinging to the inside. Nice and clean. Alright, clean the grease off these. It's sometimes sort of gray grease, not sure, but I can see particles of sand in there. That's not what I want to go back in. You can see what the sand has done. Scored these. Left in there long enough, it would do pretty significant damage. This one also, a little bit of sand. And here you go, you can see here, right there, a little bit of sand. And of course scoring. And clean this puppy off. It looks like this has a spinning countersink collar. I don't know if you can see that, which allows you to get a very accurate torque on it. Make sure you look up your torque specs if they're not printed on the outside of these, because torque on these is very important. As is blue Loctite. Don't need a lot of grease, just a tiny bit. Keeps these aluminum parts from seizing on each other. Come on. There we go. Not a bad idea to shake your Loctite up either if it's been sitting a while. So I've got blue Loctite, 242, and red high strength Loctite. It's number 27100. There we go. Now don't over tighten these because we're dealing with carbon, and over tightening is never a good plan. There we go. I don't want to lose these. They're both your bearing seals from the outside and spacers. Of course, when you drop them on the floor, you have to clean them again. There we go. Now this little chip, and I think this is specific to Dengfu. It's not a flip chip, although it looks like one. But it's got a chamfered edge. This goes out. Flat side goes in. A little more Loctite on the threads. Like I said, if you lose these when you're out on the trail, you're not going to find them again. You can pretty much guarantee. Okay. Now you don't need much grease. Again, this is just to keep this from seizing. So just a coat, a thin coat. Keep the water off the surface and keep the surface from seizing to the inside of the other aluminum surface. Blue Loctite everything that needs blue Loctite. Now this still has some good on it, but I'm going to go all the way around it. Generally, you notice that from the factory they dab it on one side, and generally that's good enough. But it's better to have it all the way around the threads. Okay, that's good. It's a good idea also to keep the tip of your Loctite clean and keep the lid on it. It's good to clean the lid out too sometimes. After a while, you get Loctite hardened up in there and you won't be able to get the lid on tight. And then your Loctite starts to harden on you, and when you go to use it in maybe a couple of months, no good Loctite. It's all been hardened, and that sucks. All right. Never mind the noise, that's just my compressor. That's so good. Again, a little bit of grease. This will help keep the water, the mud, and hopefully sand out. If you get sand in there, it's grease, you're going to have a little bit of lubrication, probably be able to hear it. Get it back to your shop and clean it. There we go. Now, one of the benefits of greasing up these seals is that here you can see it sticks to the back of the back side of this bearing, and this part here is going to slide up in here, slide up in this area here, and this basically is your spacer and a seal to keep dirt, dust, sand, mud, all that stuff out. But you got to have some way to keep it in place. You can see here I got that one in place as well, and let's put it on. Put a little Loctite on both of these to let them set, and I'm going to grease up my seals and pop them on top of my bearings. So just for the record, my bearings aren't in 100% excellent shape, but they're not locking up. They're just a little grindy. I don't like that. Two of them up here are a little grindy. Got one here that's just a touch. I want to replace those. The rest of them are real smooth. But I think what I'm going to do is order a service kit with all the bearings and just replace them all. Because if these lock up and the seat starts to turn inside the carbon frame instead of the bearing turning, well, it pretty much means that your rear triangle components are screwed. And since we don't want that to happen, check them regularly, replace as needed. Now, if you're not comfortable doing this, I recommend you take your bike to your local bike shop if they're mechanics and have them do it. But honestly, these are skills that you really should have if you're an avid biker, and that way you'll never be stuck. Grease on the stem there. Like I said, you don't need a lot, just coat it so it does not corrode and lock itself. Also, a slight benefit if you get dirt in there and you hear it, chances are you'll be able to get it off, back to the shop, clean it before the dirt scores the aluminum. Come on, Pepe. There we go. There's one. This pivot's been scored. This is the pivot that goes on the bottom left-hand side. I already got the right-hand side in. It wasn't scored, but that's what happens when you get dirt, sand, mud inside there and it starts to wear. If you hear it, and you usually will, if it's quiet and you press your suspension down and it sounds gritty, take it apart, clean it. Okay, grease. Now there's no law that says you can't put Loctite on the female threads. Either set of threads, as long as they're stuck together, is going to work. And that's it. Now we just put the wheel back on and we're done. All right, that's way more solid. That's way better.